Hello and welcome back to Allie Bakes, where I am putting myself through pastry school without actually putting myself through pastry school by baking my way through the Cordon Bleu pastry school textbook. Today we're baking Madeleines. It's the first particularly hot day in NYC, so I figured what a better pastry than one that makes me feel like I should be sitting on a sunny sidewalk drinking a French 75 in Bordeaux. Let's get started. First things first, we are preheating our oven to 392 degrees Fahrenheit. After that, we have 2 small eggs and 65 grams of sugar getting mixed together in a bowl. And those are getting mixed together until nice and homogeneous. After that, we're adding 20 grams of honey. I really like that in a lot of these French desserts, we get natural sweetness from honey instead of just white granulated sugar. It kind of makes me feel like Winnie the Pooh. Give that bowl a good scrape. And for this recipe, we're breaking out the vanilla pods again. They literally smell amazing. It makes me so sad that they literally cost $11 a pod. So I was certain not to waste any of those precious little seeds on the inside of this pod. It's kind of a painstaking process getting all of the seeds out, especially because this guy was really little, but the payoff is worth it. The seeds got added into our sugar and egg mixture and then whisked until combined. After that was combined, I added about 15 milliliters of milk and whisked that into the mixture. Then we are combining 1 teaspoon of baking powder with 100 grams of plain flour. And then we add the dry stuff to the wet stuff and whisk until combined. Literally the only downside of having a KitchenAid mixer is the constant bowl scrapage that has to take place. But after the dry stuff was combined, I added the other 15 milliliters of milk to create a nice creamy batter. Now, if there's one thing I've learned about French patisserie thus far, is that the French love their butter. I added another 100 grams of melted unsalted butter to this batter. But it turned into a beautiful ribbony vanilla-y cake batter. I had to pop that thing in the fridge for 30 minutes, and if you're anything like me, you have no room in your fridge. So I had to do a little shuffling to make sure my batter had a place to take a nap for 30 minutes, but we eventually got there. Set my little timer, and boom, we're back 30 minutes later. So instructions told me to butter and flour my Madeleine tray, but I could do Le Cordon Bleu one better. This pan baking spray literally is like 2-in-1 in terms of buttering and flouring your baking dishes, so I was more than happy to sub this out for the whole buttering and flouring process. Now, it was time to retrieve my batter from the fridge and put it into a piping bag to be piped into my little tin. This stuff already smelled incredible because of how much vanilla was in there before it was even baked. So I got it in my piping bag with my size 10 plain nozzle and started squooging it out into my molds. It almost reminded me of custard with how smooth and creamy it was, and maybe I was just hungry for vanilla ice cream because it had those vanilla bean flecks in there. This was a very aesthetically pleasing batter and super easy to pipe. As instructed, I filled these almost to the brim, gave a little extra love to the ones who were lacking, and then I popped this thing in the oven for 10 minutes, but before that I had to immediately lower the oven temperature to 320 as soon as I popped them in the oven. I'm assuming there's some sort of science to that, to the lowering of the oven temperature by about 50 degrees, but I majored in musical theater, not chemistry, so couldn't tell you exactly the theory behind that. I played my little oven gazing waiting game, waiting for them to get that nice golden brown color. I got a little bored and started flexing for the camera, as one does. And then after about 13 minutes, I guessed that these would be ready for the knife test, and they passed. So it was time for Mama's babies to come out of the oven and get immediately flipped out of their baking tin. I cannot tell you the satisfaction I had when these looked exactly like they were supposed to. They even had the signature hump that Madeleines are supposed to have, albeit it could have been a little bit bigger. I had to wait for them to cool to be able to taste them, but I was so excited, and boy, I was not disappointed. Surprised, however, that these large biscuits baked perfectly.
Those are just the most delightful little vanilla cakelets I've ever had. They're super light, and I would eat them at like, I don't know, I want to say tea party, but I've never actually been to a tea party. So like dessert after lunch, I kind of want to like put one on some vanilla bean ice cream, just because there's so much like vanilla bean flavor. But they're delicious. This also validates the fact that I like cooking in a regular pan way more than I like cooking with silicone, because I think the pan lets them get this like super yummy crust texture that makes such a difference when you bite into it and chew it. I don't know.
I was very pleased with how these turned out. Solid 7 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you at the next bake.